Raphael returned to the inn with the afternoon sun at his back, the marble streets of Peltoris glaring bright enough to make the eyes ache. When he stepped into their room, his face was set in a way that Jihye had come to recognize. It was the look he wore when he had reached a conclusion he did not like but would not refuse. Joaquin looked up from where he had been cleaning his arrows. Caleb sat on the edge of the bed, hands folded, posture too still. Jihye was by the window, watching the white city breathe in its quiet way, as if peace was something that could be built from stone alone. Raphael shut the door behind him and spoke without preamble. "They never stopped," he said, "not fully. The faith did not die with the ceiling, it went underground. Quiet families, quiet rooms, quiet prayers. They passed it down like an heirloom they could not throw away." Jihye turned slowly. "The woman said they were waiting for tonight?" "She was honest," Raphael replied, "or honest enough. They saw something, or I think they did. A herald, a sign, whatever word they use when fear begins to feel holy. Tonight, they meet to confirm it. Then, they send the message onward. If the message spreads, it will not stop at Peltoris." Caleb's voice was small. "And then what?" Raphael's gaze held him. "Then every cell, every chapel, every inherited little circle will begin to prepare. They will call it devotion. They will call it duty. They will call it protection of the world from retribution. It will be none of those things. It will be an invitation." Joaquin's jaw tightened. "We stop it?" "Yes," Raphael said. "We stop confirmation from leaving this city." Jihye's fingers curled against the window frame. "We go to them and warn them off. We convince them." Raphael did not answer at first. He moved to the table and set down a small bundle of cloth. When he unfolded it, a robe spilt out. Grey and plain, stitched in a pattern that looked deliberately forgettable, it was the sort of garment made to turn a person into a shadow. "They found this in a merchant's store," he said, "second hand. There are enough sects in Peltoris that a robe does not draw attention. It will hide my form, and it will let me sit among them long enough to try." Joaquin's eyes narrowed. "You intend to go alone?" "I do," Raphael said. Caleb stood abruptly. "No, if something goes wrong, you will be surrounded." "That is why you will all be nearby," Raphael said calmly. "All of you." Jihye took a step forward. "I should go. If they are loyal to him, they might recognize something in me." Raphael's expression hardened. "That is exactly why you will not go. You are a risk we cannot afford to expose in the middle of a cult meeting. If you lose control in a crowded building, it will become a slaughter and not the sort that ends cleanly." Jihye flinched as if struck. The words were not cruel, but they were sharp with truth. Caleb spoke next, voice trembling. "Then I will go with you." Raphael's gaze softened slightly, but his answer remained firm. "You are not suited to close combat, Caleb. You know that. I do not say it to diminish you. I say it because I will not put you in the center of a fight you cannot win." Caleb's mouth tightened. He did not argue further, but his eyes shone with frustration and fear. Raphael turned to Joaquin. "And you stay with her." Joaquin nodded once, instantly understanding. Jihye did not miss the way he shifted closer, subtle but protective. He had been the one to bring her back from the void. If she broke again, he was the only anchor they had seen hold. "So I go," Raphael concluded. "I attempt to steer them away from action. If it fails, we do what must be done." Jihye's stomach twisted. "What does that mean?" Raphael met her gaze without flinching. "It means we prevent the message from leaving that room." Silence filled the space between them. The white city outside remained bright and indifferent. Jihye felt something hot behind her eyes. There has to be another way. "There may be," Raphael said quietly, "but we do not have time to find it. There is no template for this, Jihye. There is only consequence." Joaquin's voice came low. We choose who suffers. Raphael nodded. And we choose quickly. They waited until evening, when the city streets began to shift from bustling to hushed. Raphael pulled on the robe and tightened the hood. The cloth fell in clean lines, swallowing his height and his presence. Only his hands and the faint sharpness of his eyes remained recognizably him. He paused at the door. If I do not return by midnight, you leave without me. Caleb's breath hitched. Raphael's expression did not change. That is an order. Jihye's voice cracked. Be careful. Raphael gave her a brief nod, as if acknowledging a fact rather than accepting a comfort. Then he slipped into the corridor and was gone. They followed at a distance. Joaquin moved like a shadow among shadows, keeping them in the flow of the streets without drawing eyes. Caleb stayed close, pale and silent. Jihye kept her cloak pulled tight, trying to make herself small, trying not to feel the amulet pressed warm against her ribs, as if it approved of every choice they were making. They reached the boarding house Joaquin had marked the night before. The building sat in a narrow street where lantern light was scarce, and the air smelt faintly of damp stone. A window glowed softly upstairs. The door was shut, but the street carried the low murmur of voices within. Raphael walked to the entrance without hesitation. He knocked in the same rhythm Joaquin had described. The door opened at once. He stepped inside. The door closed. Minutes crawled. Jihye pressed herself in the shadow of a side wall, heart pounding in her throat. Joaquin's hand rose, palm turned slightly, signaling stillness. Caleb had a small pouch of powder tight in his fist, knuckles white. At last, movement stirred in the upstairs window. A curtain shifted. Then, through the thin walls, voices rose. Not loud enough to understand fully, but enough to hear the shape of a gathering. Jihye hated that she could not hear Raphael's voice among them. Time passed. The sky above Peltoris deepened from blue to black. The white marble streets, so radiant in daylight, turned ghostly under moonlight. Then the upstairs window brightened briefly, as if someone had lifted a lantern closer. Joaquin's gaze sharpened. They are voting, he murmured, too quiet for anyone but the two beside him. How do you know? I know the cadence of men deciding to do something terrible, Joaquin replied. Another stretch of time, then the upstairs light dimmed again as if the decision had been made. The door opened. Raphael stepped out into the night. He stood on the threshold for a moment, shoulders rigid. Even under the robe, Jihye could see it. His chest rose and fell once deeply, as if forcing air into lungs that did not want it. He stepped away from the door and looked down the street. His hand shifted slightly. A signal. Joaquin and Caleb moved at once. They had planned it earlier, quietly, with a grim precision that left no room for doubts. Charges were simple things when you had magic, alchemy, and a man with a mind like Raphael's. They had bought the materials under false pretenses, disguised as travelers who liked to camp by the sea. Now Joaquin slipped to the side of the building, quick and silent, and set the first pouch against the stone where the wooden frame met the wall. Caleb moved to the opposite corner, hands shaking but steady enough, and placed the second. Raphael returned to the door. Jihye stared at him, confused. What is he doing? Joaquin's voice was flat. Blocking it. Raphael pressed his hand against the door and spoke something under his breath. The air thickened. The wood seemed to stiffen as though the door had been fused into the frame. He stepped back and remained standing in front of it, still as a statue. From inside, the murmur of voices rose again, sharper now, uneasy. Jihye's hands flew to her mouth. Raphael, stop! He did not look at her. He did not look at anyone. His gaze is fixed on the door as if he was waiting for something inevitable. Joaquin met Caleb's eyes briefly. Caleb flinched and looked away, tears shining in the corners of his eyes. Then Joaquin nodded once. The charges caught. Flame licked along the side of the building first, small and bright, then surged upward with hungry speed. The fire spread like a living thing, devouring old wood and dried plaster, spilling orange light across the white street. Smoke coiled into the night sky, thick and bitter. Shouts erupted inside, fists hammered against the door. The door did not move. Jihye took a step forward instinctively, her body screaming to run in, to rip the building apart, to drag them out. A sob tore from her throat. She pressed her palms to her eyes, shaking. "It's my fault," she whispered. "Everything becomes this when I exist." Raphael turns his head slightly, then, enough that Jihye could see his profile beneath the hood. His expression was stone. "This is not about you," he said, voice cold in a way she had never heard from him before. "These cultists have the potential to plunge this world into hell. They are the kindling. If they light the flame, everyone burns. Do you understand?" Jihye made a broken sound and nodded, though she did not know if she truly did. The cries inside shifted. Some became prayers. Some became screams. The fire crackled louder, the heat pressing against the street in waves. Caleb turned away, retching silently into the gutter, shoulders shaking. Joaquin stood still, eyes forward, bow slung at his back, expression unreadable. Raphael remained at the door until the window above shattered and flame poured out of it like a roaring banner. Only then did he step back. "Go," he said quietly. They moved, slipping away into the night as the fire drew attention. People began to gather at the far end of the street, shouting, calling for water, for help, for the city guard. The group kept to side lanes, faces turned down, cloaks drawn close. They returned to the inn without speaking. The innkeeper glanced up briefly, eyes flicking over their smoke-stained cloaks, then back to his ledger. In Peltoris, people did not ask questions unless they wished to invite trouble into their own bed. Upstairs, inside their room, the silence was thick enough to suffocate. Jihye sank onto the edge of the bed, hands shaking. Caleb sat beside her, eyes fixed on the floor, tears still sliding gently down his cheeks. Raphael stood near the window again, staring out into the night where the distant glow of the fire stained the sky faintly orange. Joaquin did not sit. He lingered by the door, listening. After a long moment, he slipped out again. No one stopped him. He returned to the street where the building burned. Keeping to the shadows, moving with the patience of a hunter, the city had gathered there now. Buckets passing from hand to hand, shouts rising, smoke filling the narrow lane. The fire was being fought, but not quickly. Marble did not burn, but old wood did, and the boarding house was old. Joaquin watched the doorway, he watched the windows. He watched for any sign of movement that meant someone had escaped before the heat made escape impossible. He did not see it. Still he remained until the worst of the flames had died and the building had collapsed inward with a groan, like an animal finally giving up its last breath. Only then did he turn away. When Joaquin returned to the inn, the others were already lying down, as if sleep were the only refuge left. Raphael sat on the edge of his bed, hands clasped, eyes empty. Caleb lay on his side, facing the wall. Jihye lay curled under her cloak, shoulders still trembling occasionally, as if her body had forgotten how to stop crying. They all looked up when Joaquin entered. He did not speak. He only nodded once. No more was needed. The candle was blown out, and the room fell into darkness. One by one they surrendered to sleep, not because they were comforted, but because they had no other place to put what they had done. Outside, the white city remained quiet, and somewhere in that quiet, a message that would have travelled onward died in smoke.